What's going on, Draft Family? This is PNP. This is your boy Dave here, and we're going to talk about defenses and why you should never draft them early. But before we get into that, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And also, you can get 20% off at manscaped.com using the code PNP. Once again, 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the code PNP. Now, let's talk about fantasy defenses for a bit because I think a lot of folks have a habit of just taking these defenses super early, and I've never been an advocate of it. I've always believed that you can take your defense in the bottom of the draft, probably last 2 rounds, no earlier than the last 2 rounds. Some people say, "Oh, you can just take it after you got your starting lineup." Nah, that's a waste. I'd rather build depth. Only because you're guessing on what you're guessing on the defense. It's a crapshoot. I think it's more of a crapshoot than kicker at this point. I'm gonna give you some did you know. I'm gonna give you some stats from last year, and then we'll go from there. So without further ado, let's get into it. So some did you knows. The point differential has been was 2.9 points per week between the top fantasy defense and the 12th ranked fantasy defense in 2020. The Colts was the top fantasy defense by 1 point to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers was number two, and the Patriots were 12th last year. And the crazy thing about it is, the year before that in 2019, the Patriots was the top fantasy defense, and the gap between the top ranked, and the 12th ranked was 6.2 points. And the Titans had that 4 point, and then in 2018 it was 4.4 points with the Bears, and the Jags were 12th that year. In 2017, it was 5 points between first and 12th per week. The Jags were the top defense. The Chiefs were 12th. I'm seeing a crazy pattern. So, I mean, if you go off that, that means the Colts are going to be 12th in 2021. But you never know. 2016, it was 3.3 points. The Chiefs were the best defense. Seahawks were 12th. And then in 2015, it was 3.2 points. And the Cardinals were the top defense, and the Eagles were 12th. Now, I mean, for the most part, it's typically 3 to 4 points, give and take. 6.2 was a rarity. The Patriots defense and special teams were lights out in 2019. That a 200-point season doesn't happen often, as you can see. 2 out of the last 6 years it happened. So when you take into that account, I think defenses it's always a crapshoot. So my next slide will probably give you a better interpretation of it. So these are the stats from last year, and look at some of the defenses that were in the top 12. There's only a 47-point gap between first and 12th, and then when you also take into account the fact that a defense like the Dolphins probably wasn't even drafted, a defense like the Bucks probably wasn't even drafted, a defense like the Chiefs probably wasn't even drafted, the Colts probably wasn't even drafted. The Rams probably wasn't even drafted. So you took the football team probably wasn't even drafted, and these guys fell into the top 12. Um, there were five. There were five defenses that didn't make the top 12, but did but were in the top 12 in ADP, and these are your defenses right here. So the 49ers, um, they ended up being 20th. The Bears ended up being 19th. The Vikings ended up being 27th. The Chargers ended up being 23rd. The Cowboys ended up being 21st. So, like, it's a crapshoot. And most folks tend to stream anyway. So, when you start thinking about it from that aspect, you probably should just go ahead and just roll with the crapshoot, pick a defense and roll with it, or just stream. Typically, I just stream. So, for me, it doesn't make a difference. Most folks, like, you shouldn't keep more than one defense on your team unless you realize you have a defense like the Patriots. If you see them dropping like 10 to 15 points a game, then yeah, maybe you'll 15 points a game, 10 to 15 points a game, then maybe yeah, you'll consider putting the second defense in, keep getting the second defense on your roster for the bye week because you don't want to drop that because there's a level of value to that. But most teams ain't hitting that. They're not hitting that range, man. Like that ain't hitting. So you kind of can just rotate them every week. So there's no point in you using up your value in the draft to go take one. But all right, that's all I got, man. I wanted to make this one kind of short and sweet. With that being said, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Panther Nation PC. Follow me on Twitter at ChampD1012, and I'll take your fancy questions there. Tell me what you think in the chat. And with that, I'm out. Peace.